Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. Grab your drink, grab your popcorn, your pills, your kids, your pen and paper. Call your auntie, your nene, everybody. Sit down. That's what Simon says. But before I continue, let me put a plug in for the RGPF. They're asking for the pay and grade. They didn't get it at the end of March. They said it was going to get it by the 15th of April. No dice. So just want to plug for them. They're asking what happened to the pay and grade. We'll take a quick break and come right back. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.
Thank you for the question. And so let me, obviously it's a question that impacts a significant number of persons. I want to say young, but clearly the Imani program is no longer a program for young persons. No, your jobs will not be terminated. Two, your jobs will become permanent jobs. Three, we will not place you on 6 months and 12-month contracts so that we can exploit you. Four, if you're a permanent worker in Grenada, $800 and $700 cannot be the rate at which you are paid. Five, this government will stop the exploitation of the Imanis. You have been exploited because the current government that you are in a relationship with.
And there were several other occasions. There were mention of the Imanis to be regularized, making them permanent, and of course receiving the benefits of a permanent public worker.
Contrary to their lies, this government is not sending you home or getting rid of you, but instead providing you with 14 million and your NIS contribution moving closer to security of tenure. Mr. Speaker, we are not giving the Imani one for the road, but we are giving them their future.
Congress commits to regularizing the status of contract workers who are working for the government and Imani workers who are working for the government within 12 months of assuming office.
But what we've seen lately is the sending home of the Imanis. Many workers were given letters and sent home. So here is the political leader of His Majesty's opposition as she spoke on the matter.
Well, let me say this. I don't know specifically what the numbers are, but let me make this point. And sometimes we have to dissect things. And I feel very strongly about this. Now, the Imani program over the years would have served various purposes. And I feel extremely proud about the achievements of the Imani program over all the years. So whichever administration was in office at the time, I am happy that they would have continued. So under the previous NDC administration, they chose to continue the program. This administration, up to this point, would have continued the program. And I want to dissect this along that line. Now, when this program started, and let me try to say this as quickly as I can. When this program started, the intention was to take a very limited amount of people, train them for 2 years, release them after the 2 years so that they can find opportunities in the private sector. This was the original intention of the program, which is why persons were sent on placement in various private sector companies. Now, after the first batch of trainees completed their 2-year stint, of course, it was time for them to be released from the program. 2 years of training and you finished. Now, quite obviously, what the administration then did, the new National Party administration, was to assess the situation within the country and recognize it would not have been to the advantage of Grenada and to these young people to release them all at the end of their 2 years. One, the private sector would not have been able to absorb all of them. And so the private sector absorbs them, the government absorbs them, but of course there were quite a number of them who would have had to go home and to have nothing, right? Just go home because the private sector not able to take you, the public sector not able, and so you back home with whatever skill you would have gained during that period. So our administration took a policy position that we cannot send them home. And so from that perspective, we were looking at a social response. What are you going home to do? To get into trouble? What are you going home to do? To just sit down? What are you going home to do? So it was a policy position that we would keep them. Now, you kept them. So you kept those who you engage in the service permanently, right? And then you kept those who continued in the program because there was no space to fill them into something permanent. But then you assess the amount of applications that you had, because remember, there's a turnover of students every year. And so you could say, no, we've kept those. We don't have room to take any, like this administration has said. We have all of these in here already. We cannot take any more. So they have not taken on any new person in almost 3 years. We could have adopted that position. But guess what? We look at the social situation. We look at the needs of young people, and we looked at the potential risk of not engaging them. And we made a decision. We took a policy position again that we were not just going to look at the, like we say in school, up and out, but we are going to engage these young people for as long as it's possible. And remember, there's permanent, but there's also social risk that has to be considered. When you send them home, what about their mental health? When you send them home, how are they going to feed the child next morning? And so all of those things were considered. And what NNP did back then, which was ended up being a major challenge, was to add numbers to the program. So every parliamentary representative, when this conversation came up, every representative was, oh, I have so many. I have a number of young people. Is there a way we can increase the numbers? And we increased the numbers for more than one reason. One of the reasons being the social consideration. Now, quite obviously, if you have 4,000 or 3,000 young people in a program, it's going to be impossible to make all of them permanent. So you have to make a decision. Do you keep them and make them permanent, which you can't? Or do you send home who you cannot make permanent? And I still feel proud about the decision we took, that who cannot be made permanent, you keep them to give them an opportunity. They have somewhere to go when the morning comes. You're able to give them a stipend and to engage them positively. And I have no regret about that decision, because if we did not take that decision, it means that thousands of young people after 2 years would have returned home. And I think that's the fundamental point that we miss when we talk about people being in the program for 10 years. I prefer them in the program for 10 years where they cannot get a permanent position at the time. I prefer them in the program being positively engaged rather than sending them home. I feel very strongly about that. Now, while they are there, and nobody wants to keep them for 10 years, but let us be realistic. How many can the public service take? And again, I remember anybody can remind themselves of this. we took a policy position that once a vacancy comes up in the government, whether in education, health, wherever, youth, wherever, once a vacancy comes up and an Imani trainee is qualified for that position, priority should be given to
Correct.
that Imani. And that was the policy position of the government. You may have some public officers who didn't like the position, and maybe what they did not stay in line with the position. But I remember, and I can call a name this morning, because of that policy position, Michelle Braffett in the Ministry of Education, along with the Chief Education Officer and others on that team, were given the responsibility to go through the education sector and to find opportunities for permanent placement of those trainees who had the qualification and were not yet permanent. So the many who got in permanent, whether as teachers, whether as cooks, whether as whatever they were, fine. But what about those who were not? So every trainee who was in education at that time would remember every trainee was asked to bring in their updated CV. Every trainee was interviewed to collect data as it relates to where they were, right? And that was a policy position. It was happening in health, it was happening in education as the two areas that were given priority based on numbers. Now, let me say this. This administration could have continued that approach, and they could have continued to engage new trainees in the program, and they have chosen a different path. That's their choice. I can't say what they should or should not do and make them do it. I could only say what I think they should do. So the administration, coming into office almost 3 years, did not add any new Imani to this program. And many of the trainees over the last 3 years, almost 3 years, would have had some reason why they were sent home, quite a number of them. And they come to me expressing concern. They come to me asking for help because now they no longer have an income. And there's some very scary, frightening, unfortunate stories. In some cases, persons who went on sick leave, terrible situations, returned and were dismissed. So there are persons over this period who were not allowed to continue in the program for what I say very petty reasons. Reasons that required a social intervention in many cases. And we have to remember the objective of the program. It is not about train and go. It is also about helping people to reach their fullest potential and also to support them, socially support them. And when I say socially support, I'm talking about the mentoring, I'm talking about the counseling, which the program has provided in the past, and I hope it continues. Now, in the current situation, as to fast forward into where we are, the administration indicated that it is no longer going to support trainees in the private sector. And we tried that approach in the past, trying to encourage private sector companies to hire persons, and quite a number of them did. Many of them did, right? And you sit with those companies to say, you have 3. Can you at least take 2 permanent? And you work with them. Now, some of these conversations would have led to companies saying, I can take 1. Or you would have to take the other 2 because I can't hire 3. You assess the situation because you would have an idea whether this company is genuine or not. So, for example, let's just use an example of a preschool in my parish here, St. Andrew. A preschool that would have functioned not necessarily just to make money. Check it out. And I remember once in my head trying to calculate what private schools make in Grenada. Try to calculate it. Check the cost that parents pay and check the cost that teachers have to be paid, the cost of paying teachers. And you would now realize that private schools are not making as much as many people think they make. And this is not trying to defend private schools here, but I'm making a point to say that if you take education as important, you take early childhood development as important, then you would obviously apply a different strategy to a preschool or private school in this situation. And we've done it before. But you have a preschool where every trainee who is paid jointly, the government 50 and the preschool 50, or whatever the arrangement, and all of these persons were sent home and asked to wait until further notice.
Okay.
Right. So first, let's break that down. Your mental health, right? Let's start there.
Yeah.
Till further notice, that alone is going to stress you out. You're not sure that you're going to be paid until further notice.
Until the 12th of never. You don't know. You don't know what's going on.
And I'm saying, let us take out the politics in this and let us have a conversation about youth development plus going further, Imani. So let's talk youth development first. So you send that person home until further notice. And let's examine that person. This is a person with a passion for education. When they were asked to sign up for the program, you gave them a form and you asked them to select the area of interest. What is your passion? Where would you want to excel? What do you want to do in terms of reaching your fullest potential? Early childhood education. So let us just imagine, worst case, that person has been in a private preschool for the last 10 years. Let's just say that. You're talking about a rural community where mothers want to go out and have an opportunity to work. And thankfully, they can pay a little $200. Some people, they give a little $150. Some people cannot give, and the proprietor find it difficult to even say to them, take out your child. Now, guess what? That preschool is able to function because of the supportive role of government and the forceful contribution of the proprietor. Because what that proprietor is doing is making a contribution to the trainees, but also allowing an opportunity for mothers who can't afford, mothers who want to go back to work after 3 months, have nobody to leave their children with. And so when you make those decisions, you have to assess properly the situation. You can't just take an axe and just cut down the tree. You have to consider, are there vehicles close by that is going to fall on that vehicle? Are there children in the playground that the tree is likely to fall upon them? You got to assess it. And that is what I'm saying. There are some decisions. It's not about NNP and NDC, or you like this one or you don't like that one. As a matter of fact, I think if NDC supporters are more critical of this administration, they will benefit more. They will benefit more because they would say, hey, there's probably a better way to do this or to do that. So you ask these persons to remain home until further notice. And then you say, we are going to put them into small business, for example. Well, the best way to fail a small business is to put somebody who is not interested in operating a small business. That's one of the best ways to fail a small business. So when you deal with young people, you start from the area of interest and passion. If you want to get something out of them, if you want to see them succeed and go after their dreams, the best place to start them is there. They may not always have sufficient opportunities to start them there, but I'm saying you can minimize this by finding a way. So for example, you make an exception to say where it's education, where it's health, which are some of the things we did before. So education, health, agriculture, we are not going to have the same broom sweeping. We're going to have a different policy to deal with those sectors and for a particular reason. And those are my concerns as it relates to this decision. It really doesn't matter to me what the plan is down the road. We always have to consider the immediate effect.
And I must say that I have seen and heard of several success stories of Imani's. One in particular I remember when a young lady now works at GBN, started to do media work and used to come to the press conferences that the NDC held at the time on H. Street. And I noticed the last media award ceremony. And my girl had something like 4 or 5 trophies that she was going home with. And as a matter of fact, I listened to her time and time again in the news, bringing reports and doing stories. And I must say, I am proud. I am so very proud of her. However, promise made, promise not kept. On Thursday, March the 27th, a live came across my feed of a very disgruntled farmer of Ludbar in St. Andrew. Let me share this live with you.
Listen to me when I say poor man is rating Melbourne Agriculture Station and bringing Brother Dennis Cadet. And now everyone that passed through Melbourne Station, they're speaking greatly, highly about Brother Dennis Cadet for what he had done. He had transformed the station together with Miss Frank and Mr. Casey Charles. These two people had transformed the station today.
All the time. All the time.
Because we have production and productivity there. What Mr. Leonard can do, why you did me that? You promised to go give us back the water, you go in Parliament to say it's the issue within the Lord of Farmers and we have been solved and now I will fix back the pipe for us and everything will be taking place. Almost a year and we're still crying.
Yeah, man.
Look at us here now in the dam. So we want the nation to see. Mr. Deacon and Miss Mitchell.
Yeah, man.
I'm calling on you. Do something for the Lord of Farmers.
Yeah, man. Oh.
Make life more easier for us. Sister Delma Tama and Brother Lena Sandu. They are sabotage us. And I want the nation to know the day the Lord of Farmers had to have a meeting about the letter that we get from Mr. Alison Hayes, saying that we are illegal, which we are not. Mr. Lennox Andrews and Ms. Delma Tamas, because they heard that Ms. Lorna Walden coming to hear about the farmers, they call her in a meeting in the Melbourne Agriculture Station, Brother Nigel Gibbs.
Sabotage.
And Brother Lennox Andrews, they hold her down there. And the meeting, our meeting had to start at 7 o'clock. By the time I come out from the farm, about 6:30. A meeting already going on with the minister in the pasture with farmers already. And with I and Brother Henry Alexander and Leslie Noel had set the date and the time for the meeting. And we was not there, and the meeting was already going on already. They sabotage us and they say they will make everything well. And up to today, brothers and sisters,
We're still crying.
we're still crying.
The hard.
No water. Farming, we cannot farm. Brothers and sisters, this is a disgrace. I have my son and daughter farming with me. They are not working anywhere else. That's what we do for a living. I'm the only employee in the family. And my salary alone cannot maintain the family and take care of me. Our farming been doing it for 22 years and more now. And look what the minister and not west and the minister of southwest have done to us. They have taken away our bread, brothers and sisters. We are crying.
Yeah.
Brother Deacon,
Yeah,
what will you do about that? Tell us. We are crying. We are suffering.
Yeah.
I have to come on for you to hear because nobody is telling you.
Yeah.
Because if you had known, I sure you would have done something already. So I'm saying it and I'm saying it to you. We need the water and we need the ministers to go. They are not good. They don't care for poor people. We need betterment and we need better people to run our country and our affairs.
Yeah, man.
We are the taxpayers of the country, brother.
What do you mean?
We are suffering too long. Please, the farmers are Lord, bro. We are begging, we are crying.
Yeah, man.
Our livelihood is at stake. How much more could we take?
All the time.
If
I
we
want
turn
to
to crime and violence, we will be arrested.
Sure.
Mervo is a peaceful village, a farming community, a blessed place.
Yeah, man.
Mr. Deacon Mitchell, listen carefully, sir. We need real water.
Yeah, man.
Please, sir, we need real water. We're going to show you the volume of water that's running here now. And tell us if this water can supply Mervo Agricultural Station and still help the farmers in Mervo City. Mr. Mitchell, please do something about that. We are crying. We're mourning. I want you to see, I'm going close to the water. That's the volume from the top. That's the overflow. That's when the dam full up. Look how heavy it's coming. That's where we like drain it. With a piece of wood and stuff in it. And that's where it goes. You don't get rid of that stuff inside. There is no water here. Why are we suffering?
Yeah, man.
Why are we suffering? This is why agriculture cannot grow in Grenada. We need to change that.
Yeah, man.
And we need better representation in our constituency. Northwest and Southwest need better representation. Delma and Souls must go. They are not for the poor people.
On Wednesday, the 2nd of April, in the GBN Evening News, compliments GBN, of course, in an interview with the Permanent Secretary from the Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. Isaac Bagwan, this is what he had to say.
Permanent Secretary Isaac Bagwan did not offer any assurance as to when water will be restored to the farmers. In an interview on Wednesday, the Permanent Secretary said the issue is a long-standing one, explaining that one of the two dams in the Cherry Hill area belongs to the Ministry of Agriculture. This particular system is untreated water and serves a number of entities, including the T.A. Marshall Community College, the Maribor Propagation Station, and a number of farmers in Lodba. P.S. Bagwan explained further that when the Nawassa Dam goes low, because the gravity flow is heavier in the untreated dam, it is switched off to refill the Nawassa Dam, a process he linked to valve regulation.
Last year we would have had a particularly dry season, and we have about 22 farmers in the Lodbo area. And the reality is that we recently did an audit the latter part of last year. What we found out is that there's approximately 83 persons that are connected to that one line. And obviously, and they are at a different level because the Maribor station is at the lower end. So these persons, I don't want to say take water illegally, but they make illegal connections. We understand that they're doing agriculture. There are some that are doing genuine agriculture, but we found out that a number of them are substituting the water, untreated water, for their domestic purposes, not farming.
The PS explained that currently the water supply is low due to a large boulder that has fallen into the dam. Therefore, the supply cannot be guaranteed. He said a meeting will be held with the farmers soon.
We still have a challenge in that a big stone fell into the dam itself. And of course, with all the siltation, so the reality is that the capacity is down. We of course have to make sure that our propagation station have enough water to be able to address, the needs of all the persons. So it is a work in progress. We are aware. We have met with one of the farmers yesterday, and he's aware also as to what is happening, but we think it is necessary to go and have a meeting ourselves with the farmer, so that they could understand and that we could have some kind of shared arrangements.
The Permanent Secretary was asked why all the farmers were disconnected and not just those who allegedly have illegal connections.
Well, that is what I have indicated, that we've done an audit, all right? We found that a number of persons have hooked onto a line illegally. So you find that the Lodbo farmers at the higher level, obviously, because it's gravity flow, then those at the lower end would get water first before those at the higher end and that community get water. So we are discussing it, and as I mentioned, we would have a meeting with the farmers to look and to see how we could mitigate that problem and to review the challenges that they're having. I would say within 2 weeks.
PS Bagwan said he has already asked the officer concerned to address the removal of the stone and have the dam cleaned up so that the capacity can increase and therefore there will be enough water to share. Christina John, GBN News.
And then this. Due to the lack of irrigation, the farmers' crops started to die and they began to lose their produce. Over 20 farmers, you've heard it from the permanent secretary himself. According to the farmers, they received a letter on the 8th of March stating, and the letter came from the Ministry of Agriculture, stating that their water supply will be cut off in 30 days.
Well, the situation is here now in Lodbo here is that our water source been cut off from us by Miss Alison Haynes. She is the chief agronomist of the country, and she cut off our water, stating that the Lodbo farmers causing the Merbo Agriculture Station to not be able to function properly because the water supply that we are using is shortage for them. Since in April she gave us a letter, but May 8th she stated that in 30 days time the water supply will be cut off. So what we are asking and what we are really want to know that who give the authority from the Ministry of Agriculture to cut off.
Ulrich Matthew, an employee at the Merbo Agricultural Station and a farmer for over 30 years. The livelihoods of these farmers have been disrupted, leaving the young people questioning youth involvement in agriculture.
It's not I and I who go with perish, everybody. All them children. I mean, because without food, tell me, how long you could spend without food? I mean, and water. I mean, that's essential thing. So
asking the government if you're interested in youths in agriculture, females in agriculture, that you find a solution and that you will please give us back the water so that we could continue to feed the nation, because it is something that I really love doing.
These farmers, who cultivate close to 20 acres of land with crops such as tomatoes, watermelon, carrots, cauliflower, sweet potatoes, yams and bananas, say it is painful to watch their losses. The loss of their water supply has affected their livelihoods, as it is impacting their ability to supply the hotels, vegetable vendors and supermarkets and general consumers.
Well, I lost enough crops, like melon, tomatoes, well, you see the tomatoes on the ground, you get the snap, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. And other crop, many other crop.
Invest in a lot of crops, you have to go down the drain, no water. The crops come up, can't be nothing. Cabbage, tomatoes, carrot, they can't be nothing because we have no water to wear the crops.
The farmers believe the water source is not the issue. They told GBN that after complaining sometime last year, they were promised that it will be restored. However, to date, this was not fulfilled.
There is 2 dams in Morrison, Cherry Hill area, right? Now I saw own one for the personal dam, right? And then you have a next one that service the Merbo Agriculture Station, right? So the dam that services the Merbo Agriculture Station is untreated water. It's not chlorinated, right? And that's the dam that we get the branch on.
Too much on the mind. I really can't bear it again no more. So we're asking whosoever in charge of government, the minister, to please give us back the water, please. That we help ourselves and my family. You know what I mean?
GBN's news desk sought a response to the farmers' grievances from the Ministry of Agriculture. The response received was that the number of farmers using the water supply from Merbo from the Cherry Hill Dam has significantly increased over the years, with 90% of them being illegal, and those who were given permission extended their irrigation lines without informing the ministry. The irrigation lines was inconsiderately left to run all day and night, the statement from the ministry said. Because of that, it increased the demand on the water supply. This reduced the ability of the propagation station to adequately irrigate its crops, so action had to be taken.
So you've seen and you've heard for yourself from complaints from several of the farmers affected. Now, one of the things a leader, and I'm not talking about like a prime minister, leaders, persons in leadership should have is compassion. And this administration, they have compassion, but for their own. When I say their own little clique on the top, not even their supporters, because I'm willing to bet that all these farmers, 20-something of them, are not just NNP farmers. I am willing to bet that there are NDC supporters within there. But this is not to say green and yellow. These are persons who are working as farmers to feed their kids. That's their livelihood. They have hotels, restaurants, and so that they supply, as one of the farmers said. And one of them have their kids, their young teenagers, working on the farm with them. And we're talking about youth in farm, youth farming and all of this, right? You cut off their water supply, and their produce died, withered and died. You've seen it for yourself, people. And they are pleading for help from the relevant authorities. And instead, they get everybody have a different story and not helping the farmers. Now, there was the ministry saying the reason for the water cut was as a result of the increase of farmers over the years. 90% of them, they said, illegal, and this is coming from the ministry, using water, and those who were given permission extended their irrigation, right? The irrigation lines without permission, and left them to run all day, all night, la-di-la-di-da, right? You've heard from the permanent secretary. Well, the permanent secretary, he claimed it was as a result of valve regulations. He also said that there is a line overload of some 83 persons connected to that line illegally. But currently, the reason for the low water pressure is due to a large boulder that fell into the dam. And I'm quoting here, which caused the capacity to be down. His words, remove the boulder, if that's the cause. Now, here's what the minister had to say on the matter.
It's a wrong statement. It's an unfair statement to say that the ministry is the one that has cut off the water. There was a broken main, a broken connection, and Nawasa had to close it because the water was flowing. That is the main issue that caused them not to be getting water. So once this is reconnected, they will get the water. And that's why I'm saying that I'm going to ask Nawasa to come back and fix that main that they cut off, reopen it so that they can get the water. Good. The ministry water will flow down because it's down a hill. It will flow down, and we will get adequate water to attend to our own work. But it is not correct that the ministry has cut them off. The ministry didn't cut them off. Some of these farmers are workers on the ministry. Some of these farmers work on the ministry farm in Maribo, right? And they have lands on their own that they also work. Good. And we've been supplying them with water for all those years, free of charge. We're not charging them for the water. So we don't have no problem with our farmers. In fact, we want them to farm. That's why the water was given to them free of charge. You see, I think that particular farmer, and he's really one farmer, because when you talk to the other farmers, they're not happy with what he's doing. Right? One farmer, and objectively, he's not being fair. Not just to himself, but he's not being fair to the other farmers, and he's not being fair to the ministry, who is his employer. Who is the employer? He's been working with us for over 20 years, and we've been giving him water to farm. So when he comes from working with us, he goes on his farm and he farms. So I can't understand. It's the same farmer whom I met a few weeks ago, and we took a picture together on the farm. So I visited him on the farm, and we had a long chat. Good. So I really can't understand the reason for his behavior. If he has a problem, fundamentally, he could easily talk to me. Good. So sometimes we make much ado about nothing. It's the same farmer who was a connection, a 1.5 connection from the source, right at the point where the gravity pool is strongest. He connects if a 1.5 line for himself alone to use. He alone used that line. And he reduces the gravity flow for the other farmers going up the hill. Sometimes our people, we have to be fair and objective and speak the truth.
So the minister has a completely different story. It's Nawasa and a broken main, and they cut off the water to fix it. How long it takes to fix a broken main? How long? Because I know I've been at work before in the salon, and we have broken main in St. George's, and water went for a couple of hours, and then we had water again. It didn't take days and weeks, right? Secondly, it's not one farmer. Why are you trying to blame just this one guy? You've seen, my people, that several farmers spoke out about the situation, and you've seen for yourself what's taking place with their produce. And he's not working with you. He's been working for 20 years with the government of Grenada. That's how they intimidate people. So he wasn't supposed to speak. Why he didn't just talk to you when you all take out a picture on the farm? And yes, they're working with the Marigold farm. It's not enough for them. And what's wrong with if they decide to farm on their own? And that the government of Grenada was giving them water to irrigate their produce, their plants. They're not working with you. 20 years, you said they've been working with you. You have not been there just over 3 years. So they're not working with you. They're working with the government of Grenada. Which is it? Is it Nawasa? Is it the boulder? Is it valve regulation? Is it because too many of them are on the line? Which one is it? Deal with it and help the people, the farmers and their families to survive. Things bad out here. They can't go looking for another job. There's no jobs out there. Everybody's suffering. Everybody's hanging by a thin thread at the moment. And it's only going to get worse with what's going on in the USA, with the CBI on the way down, the St. George's University on the way down. The capacity is not as it used to be. We're heading down. So please help them. We're going to need the food. Food security is important. One problem, no water, 4 different reasons. 4 different reasons. The most believable for me is the letter that came from the ministry saying that they're going to cut them off. Don't worry about what the minister comes and said. Like he didn't even find out from that's what they said. So he came there and he flinged Nawasa under the bus. They just can't get it right. I concur with the farmer. They must go and make room for people who can govern the country properly. Question to the farmer. Have you seen Deacon Amos Mitchell yet? Because you've been calling on him. Don't be fooled. He doesn't like peasants. Moving along, we have a Henchen update. You see, when I told you guys that the Henchen suspension was a mama guy, it was plain talk. Now, when the Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell ran away to Dubai in January, on his way back from China. He strategically planned that trip. He segued to Dubai, arriving there at noon on the 17th of January, 2025, along with part of his delegation. The rest of them went on to London, where we were told that the Prime Minister was as well. We were told he was in London and that he went to some Carriacou CBI meeting and that he was meeting up with the chairman of the board, Mr. Richard Duncan, and the CEO of the CBI. We did, however, break the news to you that the Prime Minister was nowhere in the UK and that he was in Dubai, along with Mr. Teddy St. Louis, his advisor / chief of staff, and Ms. Akira Lessie, his executive secretary, and Zia Rahman, the Consul General of Grenada in Dubai. This special, or should I say extra special Consul General, whom the taxpayers of Grenada is paying $45,000. Well, I can add the $110. So let me say it as is. $45,110 monthly, just because he is Zia Rahman. No other reason. Because his CV, there's nothing in his CV that makes him extra special to be a Consul General anyways. And I'm sure there are more qualified persons out there that can fit that bill, that would not charge the government and people of Grenada $45,110 a month. Cabinet approved a special case payment of $9,531.38 per month for his children's private school in Dubai. Let me get this letter here, because I don't want you all to think I'm making up these stories, because this song is a fiction, right? Get my glasses. And it's on the 5th of December, 2023. Mr. Zia Rahman, Consul General, Grenada Consulate, Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Dear Mr. Rahman, this letter serves to inform you that Cabinet at its meeting on the 2nd of October 2023 approved as a special case the payment of $114,376.62 per annum to you as financial assistance to cover the cost of annual school fees for your children. Please note that payment will commence from the 1st of September 2023. So they brought it back retroactive. Be guided accordingly. Now, the thing here is, Mr. Rahman could afford to pay for his children. He said in his acceptance for the job that he, because of his what he does for a living, he can work out of office. So when he's in Dubai, he can do his private business. Okay? And so he's doing that. He's getting paid this exorbitant amount, but yet for all, we're paying for his kids to go to private school and giving them this amount, $9,531 a month towards just his children's school fees. When the kids in the schools here don't even have lunch to eat these days because they want free school feeding program. So the dollar the children used to pay towards them getting meat in the pot, that's no more. That's no more. Mr. Rahman's annual earnings is $541,323. You hear me? $541,000. More than $500,000. His annual earnings. In the October 2024 estimates of revenue and expenditure, the budget for Dubai was $823,196. More than half of the budget, in fact, 65% to be exact, of that budget went to Consul Rahman and his family. The balance is to run the consulate, like pay rent, pay bills, pay the other staff. So his earnings is more than half of what was allocated for the entire consulate in Dubai. The amount allocated in 2025, again, $828,282. For added to his monthly salary of $17,390, that's just his salary. The penthouse rent, $18,000. $18,188. And including overseas allowances, $5,094.69. Spouse allowance, $271.69. Child allowance, and that's separate from the school fees. Child allowance, $90. And entertainment allowance, $271.69. Let me remind you that the former Consul General in Dubai received a salary of 3,000 USD, including allowance. That is EC dollars, $8,010. Fitting into Consul's Rahman earnings 5 times would change at $625 change. 5 times. Let me hasten to say that the former Consul General was paid by the citizens of Dubai, and I'm speaking of the CBI citizens, the ones in Dubai. Her earnings, her 3,000 USD was paid by these citizens. So it wasn't a cost on the government and people of Grenada, as small as it was. But our Mr. Rahman here, he has to live in a penthouse. He has to get money for his kids, his wife. He has a rent alone of $18,000, more than what her total salary was. Well, even his kids' allowance is more than what her total salary, her total earnings, allowances and everything included was. In 2024, Consul General Rahman's earnings was quarter of the entire trade budget. Quarter. And when I say the entire trade budget, I mean for all the consulates and the consuls and the embassies, you name it, everywhere. Canada, Trinidad, wherever we have them. A quarter of that budget is going to Consul General Rahman alone. Alone. The Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, salary estimate in 2024 is $105,218. Annually, of course. Although that does not include his allowances and all the perks, his entertainment and whatever, I am almost certain it does not come to over $250,000. I'm almost certain. The former Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Mitchell, got $92,000 annually. $92,000 annually. Dr. Mitchell didn't have rent incurred. He lived in the Prime Minister's residence. Now, this Prime Minister, the Prime Minister's residence is not up to mark for him. As one of his biggest fans says, he's a man of class. So he can't be looking down on the people of River Road and Darbo. So he needs to live where he has a panoramic view looking down on the ocean and whatever for $20,500 of the people's money. Him alone in a mansion, 8-bedroom mansion. Him alone. To get back on track, because I had to let you all know and remind you of what's going on in Dubai with this Consul General, right? And it's no big deal. It's no big deal. But we can't have the monies for the school feeding program. We can't. The Prime Minister went to Dubai to attend the Henchen Group's 2024 year-end summary meeting and their annual New Year's Gala 2025. In a news report coming out of Dubai, we were told that the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, arrived in Dubai on January the 17th, 2025. Now let me read for you this piece of this article. On January the 17th, 2025, at noon, Grenada's Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, along with his delegation, arrived in Dubai following a visit to China and participation in the 20th anniversary celebration of diplomatic relations between China and Grenada. After a brief rest in his hotel, the Prime Minister held a meeting with Wanfa Lee, chairman of the Henchen Group. During the meeting, Chairman Lee presented a detailed report on Henchen Group's market promotion efforts and the project construction progress in 2024. He also sought the Prime Minister's continued support for global market promotion initiatives in 2025. The Prime Minister expressed his pleasure with the achievements of the Grenada National Resort Project in 2024 and encouraged Henchen Group to persist in making further advancements in project construction while contributing more significantly to the global promotion of Grenada's Citizen by Investment program. The Prime Minister reaffirmed that the Grenada government remains committed to fully supporting enterprises that embody a spirit of diligence and innovation. The meeting concluded, on a positive note, with the Prime Minister extending an invitation to Chairman Lee for lunch. If you look on the screen right now, you would see Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and Mr. Lee as they walk the red carpet. Now, here's a clip of Prime Minister Deacon as he addressed the event. Now, this is how we got this clip. This clip was doctored, and I would think for obvious reasons, because all this was happening whilst the Henchen Group was under investigation. Here is Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell.
Let me start by recognizing Chairman Lee and his dear wife, the management and heads of department of Henchen Group, staff of Henchen Group, partners agents of Henchen. I also wish to recognize happiness, success, and I look forward to seeing all coming and being here this evening. I thank you all for supporting the Henchen Group, Mr. Lee, his team, the Grenada National Resort, and by extension, Grenada. Seeing is believing, and when I met Mr. Lee in the summer of 2022, I said to him then that I would be happy to continue promoting, supporting, and partnering with him to make sure that that the project was a success. Partnership, the continued hard work, the continued marketing and promoting of the program, the project, because partnership, we have a saying in Grenada that one hand can't clap. As much as I do this, you will not hear me. But if our support and our commitment to make sure that this project is a success. As you saw in the excerpt of my speech, the project is ambitious. Every day, and going at it. And I'm sure for the departments and the team members who are awarded today, I'm sure that reward gives them greater drive to be better, faster, and more efficient in 2025 to continue the success of this project. So I want to say to the construction team in particular, and for more achievement. And the Henchen Group and the Grenada National Resort is reflective of that. And so when I say the project is ambitious, the government maybe into a child. We look forward to the continued growth of that child and to the child in 2027 becoming a young adult that we can all be proud of and look forward to its continued growth into a mature young man or woman. I'm not sure whether it's male or female yet, but given its elegance, given the spectacular nature of it, it's probably a female child. So I want to thank you for investing in Grenada. Thank you for partnering with Grenada. And I want to thank all of you for coming out and supporting this project.
Babbling as usual. A nice love story between him and Mr. Lee, right? If you notice, the article I read gave you a lot more information on what he actually said than that clip. For obvious reason, it was doctored. So, the Grenada Investment Migration Agency, IMA, aka CBI, has launched an investigation into China's Henchen Singapore development. CBI marketing agent suspected of offering illegal discounts to applicants since August 2024. And I believe it started before that, but the actual probing followed a meeting between the IMA Grenada leadership and the senior officials from the Henchen Group on August 25th, 2024. I say this to say that whilst the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, was partying with Henchen, and the Prime Minister expressing his pleasure with the achievements of this project in 2024, encouraging Henchen Group to persist in marketing further advancement in project construction while contributing more significantly to the global promotions of Grenada's Citizen by Investment Program, CBI. Henchen was under investigation all this time, and he's encouraging them to continue marketing illegally, basically. And the Prime Minister was encouraging them to beef up their global promotions of Grenada. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell further reaffirmed that the Grenada government remains committed to fully supporting enterprises that embody a spirit of diligence and innovation. Diligence and innovation. Folks, the Chinese-owned and Dubai-based Henchen Group is the marketing agency accused of being engaged in illegal passport sales, both in its own name and in the alternate identifying it is currently using to conceal itself from the public. Tesoro Global. See why I've said the suspension was mama guy and fake, treacherous. If you look on the screen, you'll see a photo of the project. Folks, this is what the Henchen Livera project looked like today. And this is from 2019 to date. We've been mama guy right round. Moving along. I got a call concerning a young man, a youth, and strong supporter of the NDC, who was in trouble with the law on a number of counts. After being held for 48 hours in police custody, he was released on $50,000 bail. I know him to be a very active NDC young man, active in his constituency of St. Andrew Northeast. He was in the youth arm, very active there as well, the youth arm of the NDC. And even at one point, I know that he was on the executive council of the NDC. I was saddened because although the young man he's a young adult, it is very easy to follow the trend. The fish starts to rotten at the head and then goes down. The young man was put in charge of community projects and got involved in corrupt practices in a similar manner to what is going on inside the Ministry of MIT. There is also a car story similar to the car story of the then Minister of Youth and Sports, Ron Redhead, and his then advisor, Ian Django Thomas. Remember they sold a car that wasn't belonging to them? In other words, they stole a car and sold it, basically, right? The car was lent to them for campaign purposes. They sold the car, and of course, when it got to the transfer, that's where they made the brick wall, because they couldn't transfer the car. It was not on their name. It was on the owner's name, of course. This young man, I understand, allegedly went further than that, so he forged the signature of the owner of the car. With a prime minister that trivializes corruption and says quite casually, no one's perfect. Lest you forget, how's the prime minister reasoning for the corruption that is taking place with his friends in high places?
Would things like that worry you in terms of the optics politically? I mean,
no, I think
there are a bunch of people now with too much time on their hands trying to get their job back because of corruption issues.
We're as transparent a government, I think, as Grenada has seen in my lifetime, for sure. And I think if any issues arises and there's credible evidence of stuff, as a Prime Minister, I'm prepared to deal with it. But what I will not...
Did you look into the lotto matter, though?
Yes, I looked
because I looked into it, and there seemed to have been a bit of credibility to some of the issues.
I looked into the issue, and I just said to you, which is why I talked about how you handle conflicts. in terms of what the legislation says and what has to happen, right? So I'm saying when people just simply make spurious allegations and come up with all kinds of fanciful stuff, you have to be careful that you don't allow people to draw you in and to make decisions as if you are Jesus Christ and he who is without sin cast the first stone. I'm saying the very nature of our laws recognize that you have situations where someone who serves on a board may have their firm or their business and so on bidding for work that a particular entity is offering. And there's a process and procedure that has to be followed. So I'm saying if someone makes, and you're saying it where I look into the lotto thing simply because I'm hearing media allegations, if someone makes a credible accusation, we will obviously investigate it and then we make necessary decisions that has to be made. But too often, and I think the National Democratic Congress government in the past was allowed itself to be hoodwinked into trying to go after its own and into trying to punish its own and to hold itself at that standard that's almost impossible. When other people are doing all kind of things left, right, and center and getting away with it. So I'm saying we are living in a society where nobody's perfect. And we have to be careful that we don't try and hold people in public office to a perfect standard and then try to hold them at that.
The car Minister Ron Redhead and his advisors stole and sold. You got credible information, Prime Minister. You spoke to the owner of the car. What did you do? You said to her, I'll send you the money. You'll get your money. And what did you do? You sent half of the money to Monday, because you spoke to her the weekend. The whole thing blew wide open on the weekend. You sent her half the money on the Monday, as promised. And then by the Tuesday, as a matter of fact, the next half, they brought to her in the dark of the night. And she said, I'm not taking that money at this time. Please come back tomorrow morning, which they did on the Wednesday morning. The minister, Ron Redden, and he was accompanied then by the minister for Carriacou and Petite Martinique affairs, like drug dealers in the night with cash, right? You knew it was credible. What did you do? What did you do with that credible information? Are you saying that all that we have uncovered in the lottery authority, that's not credible? It's only not credible because it's your friend. Look at the photo, look at that photo on the screen. Look at the picture up on the screen. You see, it's okay for the big boys to embezzle. And the little boys, the peasants, or the commoners, as your minister referred to us as, they would go to jail for stealing. Because when you're poor, it's stealing, and when you're rich, it's embezzle. Right? Now pay attention to that photo. Now that photo, remember the red vest? That was on the swearing in of the Prime Minister. That red vest. Right? Look at the boys, as they toast their way to riches. It was a toast for riches. The Prime Minister, right, the new, on his right, the new chairman of the Board of Tourism, his dear friend, Randy Dolan. To his immediate left, the director of GDB, on the board of the GDB, one of the directors on the board of the GDB, Attorney-at-Law Trevor St. Bernard, who prepared the document in his private capacity. Now, he's on the board. He's a director on the board, the Grenada Development Bank board, and prepared documents in his private capacity, in his private law firm, for Andy Williams, the borrower of the GDB. He borrowed from the GDB, and the director, one of the directors, he prepared the 6th deed of further charge for the GDB, for the borrower, Andy Williams. unethical, unethical. It was written in the 6th deed of further charge. If Andy Williams pays the GDP $300,000 by July 2023, they would release the securities he gave the bank. Now, you might remember I had on here one of the directors of the bank on the board, and she knew nothing of this agreement with Andy. So it's either some of the directors knew and others didn't, or was it just this one director who made the arrangement? But what is clear is that there was at least one director. And as a matter of fact, she had said to me that she questioned some of the directors and they knew nothing of it as well. A property in Montparnasse valued at $600,000, 2 small lots of land in St. David's, and his parents' house in the Grandens housing scheme. Those were the securities he gave the bank for an almost $3 million loan, right? And after paying $300,000, he was given back his securities. So right now, as a matter of fact, the loan is unsecured. The loan is unsecured. $3 million loan, unsecured. Who's to make him pay for it? Or is that what is supposed to happen? He don't pay and nobody can make him pay. They have nothing to take for it. Right? He since sold the house in Montparnasse that belonged to him. And it was part of the whole contract on the Cliff Road project contract. He sold the house to Mr. Nelson Louison, the contractor, and got an extra $100,000 in his hand, and $15,000 went towards his vehicle. And to his left, that is Mr. Trevor St. Bernard's left, is the magistrate. At the time, he was Magistrate Teddy St. Louis. Knocking glass, the magistrate, right? Knocking glass. Riches to come. Riches to come. Now he's, of course, advisor to the Prime Minister and Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister as well. In company with William Petite, bringing in cement, and that is Mr. Teddy St. Louis, cement and aggregates to the country for Henchen Group, and gravel and concrete. And there you see Mr. William Petite, knocking glass as well. Mr. William Petite, knocking glass as well. Now someone is noticeably missing. Maybe, just maybe, he was the photographer or the picture takeout. Just maybe. But there's someone missing there. Mr. Orlando Remain. He's one of the, he's noticeably missing. Now, in this same vein, as this young man who is on bail, $50,000 bail, but after hearing of some of the allegations, right, overpricing stuff and taking the change material or taking the material and the extra material and bringing it back for cash and whatever. Those are some of the allegations, along with this stolen car that he sold. Well, the car that he sold, that didn't belong to him, right? Lest we forget the young man who went to jail for writing bounce checks. When sitting in our cabinet and in our parliament is another young man who is being promoted for the same crime, for the exact same crimes he committed before getting into office and while in office, writing bounce checks. There's a video that shows, compliments the GBN, this guy being taken away to jail.
O'Neill Ryan Mighty was originally slapped with 10 counts of fraud and an 11th charge for the offense of money laundering. The matter involves the issuance of over $80,000 worth of bounced checks to a commercial bank in St. George's in September 2016. The matter was prosecuted by Crown Counsel in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, Howard Pinnock, who accepted the guilty plea for the charges and did not offer evidence on the money laundering charge. Mighty has been remanded to the Richmond Hill prison until his sentencing, which is carded for October 26th.
What's good for the goose should be good for the gander. It is unfair when the examples are being set for our young people. That is okay. It's okay to do these things. You see Andy Williams in the Parliament sitting in the cabinet. He's the designated Prime Minister, acting Prime Minister of Grenada. Once the Prime Minister is in the clouds, he is our acting Prime Minister. That's just a drop in the bucket of the things this guy was is being investigated for and coming into office. He went quickly to tell us that he almost went to jail for stealing at the Flamboyant Hotel. Prime Minister was the Attorney General for that hotel at the time, and allegedly part owner owner of the hotel, so he knows the story. So of course he had to come forward with it. But there were others. There were others. And it is not fair to the young people out there who are going to jail for stealing a coconut. Yes, they're wrong because there's no little sin and big sin. They're stealing. But what's good for the goose should be good for the gander as well. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Now, if you look on your screen, you'd see photos of what we term Build Back Better houses. I'll read to you an article written by Senator Nolan Cox. He's also the deputy political leader of the NNP and the deputy president of the Senate. Here we go. Dumfries housing development, a growing concern of residents. While we acknowledge and appreciate the efforts to provide much needed housing in Carriacou, the situation unfolding at the newly developed Dumfries housing area raises serious concerns about planning and the long-term sustainability. Why place these new homes right next to the Dumfries dump site when there is ample available lands in the surrounding area? This decision affects poor planning and lack of foresight, both in terms of health and quality of life for the residents. Since December 2024, residents have been living in prefabricated homes donated by hands that serve, yet they are still without electricity. How can families truly settle and thrive under these conditions? Another major issue in the design of the government newly installed prefab homes themselves. In a place like Carriacou, where rainwater is a critical resource, it is deeply concerning that the government prefab houses were not designed to harvest rainwater. This is a missed opportunity to support self-sufficiency in water access. Here is a clear and simple solution. The government should require the manufacturers to retrofit roofs to support rainwater harvesting. This isn't just practical, it's essential. In addition, the government should prioritize the extension of the Nawasa water distribution network to these new homes Access to clean pipe water is a basic right, not a luxury. People of Carriacou deserve better, safe, and well-planned housing with access to electricity and water. Yes, indeed. Now, did you know that farmers' crops was bulldozed without their knowledge in that same area there to put these houses, as if they had no other place to put these houses? You're hearing Senator Cox saying there that there are other government lands elsewhere. They bulldozed farmers' produce so they could put these homes close to the dump. Now, we got, or the people of Carriacou got these prefab houses donated in the meantime, while most of us thought the government was going to build little concrete structures, or even if it's wooden, because, I mean, the Janet structures, we still have some of them around after so many hurricanes and storms, and they were wooden. But what we see is prefab houses being bolted up by the government of Grenada for our people. These little boxes, with very poor ventilation. Look at the roof, as flat as it comes. Two window, one door. And that's it. I mean, just pay attention. If you look, there are some more photos of these houses. I mean, to me, they look as slums. Why? Where's the money? Where's the money? The GoFundMe, the money from the Caribbean, the other islands, the CRIF 118,000 million. No. And you know what? I'm going to just leave out that other thing with the bulldozing of thing, right? Yeah, so I'm gonna leave that out. Right? The CRIF money, $118 million. Where are those monies? Why are we looking like we're scraping up the bottom of the barrel for pennies to give our people in the sister isles of Carriacou and Petite Martinique homes? Why? Now, as I spoke of bulldoze, I just want to say here that there were other instances. I've heard of and got information reaching me from citizens of Calais, villages of Calais. The same thing happened. They produce citrus, mango, sorrel, bananas, were bulldozed, okras, were bulldozed, an area in Calais, and they were told by the operator of the machine that it's to put Project 500 houses. There's also a case in St. Mark, in Diamond St. Mark, where cocoa, nutmeg, bananas, and bamboos were bulldozed for youth in agriculture. So you're bulldozing cocoa, nutmeg, bananas. What with the topsoil and all? As far as I've seen it, it's just in an effort for time, I can't bring those videos to you today. And it's for youth in agriculture. Nothing wrong with that. But there are other lands. Why do you have to bulldoze cocoa and nutmeg to teach youth in agriculture? What are we doing? What are we doing? In a statement coming from the member for Carriacou and Petite Martinique Affairs, Tevin Andrew, he said, while there are challenges that need to be addressed, the Dumfries housing development represent Progress. He called that progress. A step towards providing shelter and stability for families who need it most. Not because they need it most, you're going to treat them like that, though. Instead of focusing solely on the setback, let us recognize the opportunities these houses will evolve into a thriving, sustainable community. Progress, stability, opportunities, evolve, thriving, sustainable. Those words should never be used to describe what we are seeing there on our screen. Never. These houses look like they were built by my 2-year-old grandson and his playmates at kindergarten. I mean, I'm not saying they're not strong. That's how they look. If you look at them, they look like they rest on this platform and the first hard breeze blow, it will pour with them. I mean, it just looks so like the quality is so poor. Now, is it true the prefab houses bolted up in Carriacou are being brought in by Mr. Randy Dolan, the Prime Minister's buddy, the chairman of the Tourism Board of Authority? And if you see the picture, let's have that picture back up on the screen. That's him right there to the right of the Prime Minister. Faring, coasting to riches. Coasting to riches. Everybody is to eat a food, the friends, while we serve our poor people to build a proper little structure for these people, for these victims, homeless. We find it difficulty to spend the monies. The Prime Minister did say that prefab houses are cheaper and quicker. We're what, 11 months gone? And we're still struggling with some prefab houses without electricity and water to house our people, to bring back their dignity. And all you and your friends are doing is eating and eating and eating the food. According to Uncle Tilly, you're going to eat poison just now.
You must have some values and standard too. So many people in United States eating food, they go eat poison just now.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now, Petite Martinique has its own challenges. Quite recently, sometime in March 2025, and we're talking recently, this March that just gone there, a Petite Martinique Build Back Better committee was formed. As the release said, we are pleased to inform all residents, family, friends of Petite Martinique that a Build Back PM, well, they leave the better in this case, that a Build Back Petite Martinique project team has been commissioned to assist with the rebuilding and repairs of homes in Petite Martinique. Now we're talking 11 months, and they're just putting together a commission for the people of Petite Martinique. Now, Don Licoto is the appointed project manager. Now, we know that name in relations to a GoFundMe of some, I think it was between 65 and 68,000 pounds, of which the villages of Petite Martinique, the constituents of Petite Martinique, are still questioning where is that money from that GoFundMe. Ms. Dawn Dakota attorney lives in Grenada. She's Grenadian. She has a business here. You are putting her to manage. She's managing the commission. Along with her are persons, one, Mr. Terence Logan, other members on the commission, Mr. Dexter Miller, who is unaware that he was on the commission, never was engaged, but he is to change the rhythm. Dexter Miller is to change the rhythm, and you see why I say that. So we have Terrence Logan, Dexter Miller, Dwight Logan, Terry Belma, and Bridget Logan, right? The confirmed contractor is Grenma Construction, led by Mr. Rupert McIntosh. The project team are in here. Listen to this. The project team are in critical mobilizing stage, which will take several more weeks. So they're already late, months, almost a year, right? They're already late. And it's going to take them several weeks before they settle down to figure out what they're going to do in Petite, Martinique after almost a year. The hurricane season is around the corner. Question: the people of Petite Martinique wants to know if the committee is a paid committee, or the commission, if you so to speak, if it's a paid commission. Information reaching me is that the head of the commission, Dr. Dawn DeCoto, is about to build back or renovate her sister's house, the same house that had the contention immediately after the hurricane with the Starlink on the island, was in that house, and the medical station nowhere else had a Starlink. The only Starlink was in that house that came from NADMA. The family of the house resides in London, and the word is, it is alleged that the next 3 houses in line belongs to the Logans. Now, 2 of the Logans work at the office of the Minister for Carriacou and Petite Martinique Affairs, Kevin Andrew, in Carriacou, on the Isle of Carriacou. The people of Petite Martinique are afraid to speak out because I ask it, why aren't you all speaking out? Why you all just there like sitting ducks? They're afraid that they will not get their houses renovated, or the ones who need a home, that they would not receive a home. Well, Mugabe style. So they're afraid to speak. So they're calling me all the time to speak for them. And I'm proud to do so, because I know that not everybody can speak out because of their circumstances, and they're just so afraid that they would not get a home. So they are afraid to speak. Meanwhile, this is where Mr. Carlton DeRoche, 78-year-old, if you look on the screen, you'll see this structure there. This is where this man, Mr. DeRoche, 78 years old, a Queen's awardee, and his wife, 81 years old, is living after Hurricane Beryl, since the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl in Petite Martinique. They have applied for assistance on numerous occasions, and to today, they have not received any assistance or even been visited, Mr. DeRoche has health challenges, and they need assistance immediately. It is believed that the DeRoches are ignored because they are supporters of the NNP. The people are calling on the government of Grenada, Carriacou, and the Petite Martinique to give immediate attention to the DeRoches. They're asking whatever happened to Petite Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada, where they came first during the campaign and immediately after. However, they also are aware that Petite Martinique was that the NDC lost in that polling division, the polling division of Petite Martinique. Whatever happened to, as one people, one family, God bless our nation. We sing it all the time at every event. our anthem, one nation, one people, to get the yellow and the green in times like these. We get it. We take a quick break and come right back to the meat of the matter.
Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.
I came across a conversation that I thought I will share with you. It's all about opinions. They have theirs, you have yours, I have mine. But it's also about facts. And you know, when Simon Says, facts come first. Here we go. Look at this clip.
Thank you, and yes, thanks for the question. I have been writing more because I've been paying keen attention. I have taken a break of a few years from politics and saying stuff about politics, but what brought me back in is, I think, as a supporter of the NNP, I didn't like what I saw with the build up to the NNP convention. I really didn't like what what was going on, what was being said on the platforms. I reached out to many of the party people within the party to talk about how we eat in our own, and we do have an election to win in a party to build back. And I don't think my advice was taken. So I told them I'm going to go public with my views, and that's what I've been doing. And in terms of your question, the political climate in Grenada, I think people are yearning for something new, for something good, and for good ideas. I have to.
So you didn't get what you wanted. You took your marbles and you went home. That's as good as what you just said, because they didn't take your advice. You decided you was going to go public, right? That is his assessment of the political landscape here on island now, right? But I read somewhere, and he said it. He said that he was following the NNP. In one of his many articles that he went public with so far, that he had followed Peter David into the NNP when he was expelled from the NDC. So in other words, he never really was an NNP, okay? Now, what I have noticed is that basically the ones that followed Peter David into the NNP from the NDC with a handful of extra that was bought and paid for, they're the same ones that are following him out of the NNP. Only this time, although much too late, there is not another ready-made party for him and his group to loaf off. So it's either pack up or make a go at it one more time to become a political leader of something, of anything, and ultimately to make a go behind becoming Prime Minister of Grenada. Hence, D movement, and D as in the letter D movement. That's how they call themselves as of now. But we know that the movement has not been moving anywhere yet so far. And we also realize that they tried to carry 20 persons, this so-called bleeding that they were talking about, 20 persons. But I said to myself, things bad, when I heard Cami calling on a radio program to say she ain't going further. She's an NNP now, and she's staying with the NNP. Now play me the next clip, please.
So I think there is on the ground itself in talking to people, which I have done so, not just in Grenada, but in the diaspora. People are looking for something new. People are tired with the same old with regards to politics. And so that's where I would say in terms of the underground itself, our politics, people are looking for something else.
Now people are looking for something new. Tired of the same old. Something new? People are looking for something new? What is people? What percentage of persons are looking for something new? Meaning a new party, right? That's your suggestion. You're suggesting that they're looking for a new party. And you seem to be engaging the movement with persons like Peter David, Chester Humphrey, Derek James, Hamlet Mark, and I can go on. These are something new. They are something new that the people are looking for. Which part of those names that I just called, who are supposedly heading the thing, which part of them are new? More like discarded, weather beaten, exposed to the elements, expired. Yeah? Geriatrics. And in your tone, Dr. Bridgman, and now, new? And I'm not being malicious here. There is nothing new about that bunch. Absolutely nothing. Play the next clip, please.
Now, as a supporter of the NNP, you expressed your views on, you say you did not like what was happening, what was being said, and we all heard the utterances from former political leader and former opposition leader, Dr. Keith Mitchell, directed at Peter David, whom many expected would naturally be elected as a political leader. That was expected to be the next step. The game was changed midstream, or at least to those of us who thought that was the game was changed midstream, or else someone was playing a different game that we were not aware of. And the leadership of the party is as it is now. Do you believe that with what the NNP has to achieve, the task at hand, to seek re-election, do you think they made a mistake in the choice of leader for the party?
I would say in terms of the choice of leader, I will leave it up to the party people in terms of at the convention. But I would say that in any party, political party, we have to have an open system. We have to have transparency. And whoever wins, wins. But at the end of the day, fairness is important for me, in terms of equity, following the ethical codes and principles and stuff. Those things, I think, need to be in place for we to have a healthy democracy. And I don't think that happened. I think from what I was seeing, in terms of things that was said on the platform itself, was to undermine one particular person, and that's Peter David. I would have loved to see a healthy debate, a healthy competition between him and any other, and whoever wins on that day, wins on that day. But what I saw, I couldn't support what I saw. I did congratulate Emlyn Pierre after Peter David said he's not running, but I'm in total agreement with him and not putting his name up there, because again, it was contaminated. It was a means to say, hey, we don't want you. You're the poison of our party. This is a person that we want. So I don't think it was fair, and I think there's a struggle right now to.
Now these clips complement Carriacou Update WPG10 of WPG10s. Now, it's so obvious when you support someone, you're supporting Peter. But don't try to make all these excuses about why, and you all wrong. You are wrong. You guys heard that. You guys heard. Peter David was actually expected to be the next leader. Why? And so if your dreams came true, that Peter David was handed the leadership of the NNP on a platter, that would have been okay. That would have been democracy at its best. And today, few would still be so-called NNPites. The game was changed midstream, she said, admitting that they thought it was a foregone conclusion. But when games are being played, we all know the results varies. It's a game, and anybody or any team can win, unless it's set up so that a particular team or individual wins, right? It was clear that Peter David and his crew thought that he was going to be the only one vying for the leadership of the NNP. Now, once Dr. Mitchell said he was throwing in the towel, and then in between, some names started to pop up. Even yours, Dr. Bridgman. You remember? You remember me asking you if what the rumors are true? And then you said, no, you're not ready. You to leave your work, blah, blah, blah. You're not ready to retire. And you're going to go to speak to Dr. Mitchell. Remember that? Remember that conversation? Then once Emmeline Pay's name came to the fore, and once she decided that she was going to put her name in the hat, things changed. A few feathers were ruffled. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But wasn't it her democratic right, or isn't it her democratic right to do so as well? Do you know that Peter David and his faction tried to get Mrs. Pay, to step back and be the deputy political leader and leave Peter David to become political leader with no contest? So she just stepped down and be deputy. Why? Why was that so? Why they thought she should be the deputy and not the leader? If he was comfortable in his skin, why didn't he just see it as a challenge and say, well, okay, let's do this? Now, Dr. Bridgman, it is obvious you haven't been involved in party politics at this level before. Peter David had a chance to go up against Emmeline Payne to contest for the leadership of the NNP at the convention, but pulled out just hours before. This, after right up until then, the Peter David camp were brandishing their popularity amongst the NNP executive and members. They claimed from time that they had the support of both inside the house and outside in the yard, on the ground, as was said 13 years ago, when the same set of them tried to wrestle the NDC away from Tillman Thomas and his supporters. When Peter David said that he refused to go into another election with that peasant boy, yeah, Uncle Tilly liked to farm, he looked after his goats, he's an attorney at law, but he was called a peasant boy by Peter David. And he said he refused to go into another election with that peasant boy as his leader. After they were accepted into the NDC by that peasant boy, because many others on that executive tore up and threw away or threw away their application to enter the NDC. They were not wanted. It was Tillman Thomas. Even though he was jailed by, you can say, you guys who were revolutionaries, right? He spoke of reconciliation and said it was okay. Let them in. In less than 3 years, just a mere 2 years into office in the 2008, after the 2008 election, you were ready to overthrow Tillman Thomas as leader of the NDC and the Prime Minister of Grenada, because you said you were not going back into another election with him as leader of the party. Even after Tillman said he was only going to do 2 terms, you couldn't wait. You couldn't wait. The thirst for power, you couldn't wait to finish what you started. As some of you have been saying, since the movement, you come back to finish what you started. The same root cause that caused the demise of the revolution, greed and thirst for power, the same are the cause, or the same root cause caused the demise of the NDC in 2008 to 13. Infighting that ended up with 2 factions. Now let me explain to you what your Peter did back then, Dr. Bridgman. Your Peter was the General Secretary of the NDC then. As we said, the engine of the party. He was also the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Tourism. And as I understand it, a position he gave himself, literally. Because back then, of course, you might have heard it several times that he was Tillman Thomas' blue-eyed boy. And himself and a stalwart of the party, Mr. Joseph, Oliver Joseph, may his soul rest in peace, drove up to Hermitage to meet with the peasant boy to form the cabinet. Peter strategically took tourism and foreign affairs. Why not? As his ministries, and put himself up for general secretary. And as I remember it, he was unopposed. He became the general secretary of the party. He was popular and a favorite among supporters as well. What he didn't bargain for was that Tillman Thomas, the peasant boy, was more popular than him. And with a few of us executive members, because it was just a few of us that stood by the side of Tillman Thomas. But the masses is where the problem was. He did not win over the masses of the NDC. So he had the majority of the parliament, the cabinet, the executive, but he did not bargain that the masses would have stood up with Tillman Thomas. There was no way in hell the masses, together with a few of us, would have allowed the Peter David faction to go with the NDC brand. No way in hell. In likewise manner, only it was easier in the NDC because he was an NDC basically. Coming back from studies after the revolution, the first party you joined, and so he was an NDC. But it was not that easy for him in the NNP. You see, in the NDC, being the general secretary, he was in charge of the branches in the different constituencies. The chairpersons met with the GenSec, it's once a week or whatever time was set by him, of course. They met with him. So he was able to infiltrate their minds, right? He was also able to convince enough of the cabinet members to go along with him, offering them big monies, big monies. Some of them was a bit stubborn, like Alan Walker, who refused $250,000. He said he needed more to cross the floor, so to speak. He needed more. What is a briefcase of cash came up from Trinidad to pay off one of the cabinet members, so they can finally say yes. He wanted mortgage payoff, and I have names. I know who brought up the money. I know who took it to the member. I know other things as well. You see, in the NNP, it was not as easy because they were outsiders. Peter was an outsider, really, dealing with hardcore NNPIs. And he/they were not sure who would go along with them and who would not. They didn't know who the loyal NNPIs were, the ones who would say or take stuff and go to the real NNP. Right? And so it was a risk. Now, hear this clip.
Someone approached me with a letter to sign, to add my name to it, indicating that I was unhappy with the New National Party and the way things were going. And I was upset with the convention. I looked at the letter in detail, as you all should if you approached with one. And when I looked at the contents of the letter, I recognized there were many erroneous statements within the letter. In other words, a lot of things that were not facts. I advised that the letter be reconstructed, and I gave advice on what are the necessary changes that should be made. Another member of our executive was approached, and they were told, Mr. Green is going to sign it as the chairman, so you go ahead and sign it too. That was Wednesday. Thursday night, there was a WhatsApp group chat going around that the chairman and how many other members resigned and upset and all sorts of things. By Friday, it was in the news today. But when you read the letter, it was a totally different letter. But somebody was smart enough not to attack my name to it. Friends, I caution you. I am a Cadbury, very proud one too. Member of the new National Party. I was born a member of the new National Party.
So the bleeding came from a generic letter. Here, sign this and say you're not happy with what happened in the convention, and say, and your name end up on a list. In the town of St. George, for instance, I was informed that there were persons on that list who can't really read or write. They're illiterate on that list. You didn't know what they signed or put their name to, or was the name just put there for them, right? And that is what was the so-called bleeding. All of a sudden, the bleeding, maybe after this, it would continue, because we expected bleeding from St. Andrew, Southwest, St. Andrew, Northwest, we exploited bleeding, then St. David's, those were branded about already. But I guess after Mr. Glean come out and say what is really happening, they stopped, the bleeding stopped immediately. You spoke of the NNP convention being contaminated. A strong word, Mr. Bridgman. Then I would say all parties' conventions are contaminated. And Peter David knows how to contaminate a convention. Going into the 2011 convention of the NDC, Peter David had his own slate. Remember, he had all of the chairpersons under his spell, and they had handpicked. Because normally for the NDC, the chairpersons along with the caretaker or candidate, they do the picking of the delegates once they're financial. He had most of the caretaker candidates in his pocket, and so did he have the chairpersons. So they handpicked delegates, with the exception of a couple of constituencies, and went to the convention. He had his slate. He knows the system. He knows what he did before. So I guess he knew and was thinking that is what was happening to him in the NNP. What's wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that. As I understand it, that's how you became the Deputy General Secretary of the NNP. But all of a sudden, it's poor me. Look what they're doing to me. You bring me pamper. I'm about to wet the bed. Your baby, right? Because it's happening to you. Always the victim. Always the victim. So that convention, with the exception of 3 positions, I think it was then, Peter David's slate won almost all, if all the other space, right? The treasurer of the party lost by the skin of their teeth. That was Sylvester Wallace, was on his slate as treasurer. He lost. And the treasurer is a very important person for those of you who don't know on an executive, because they're in charge of the list of members of the party and those who are financial or not financial. So when there is an election, like a convention, or for a general secretary, the treasurer now says, oh no, this person can't be financial, this person can't vote, they're not financial. Or you understand? And so the treasurer can also mobilize for new members and that sort of thing. And that was an important position that Tillman Thomas won, right? And of course, then I think the deputy political leader, Nazenberg, he went up on the post as well. And he won. And yours truly became deputy chairman of the party at that time. I was also newly the president of the Women's Arm, and rallied the Women's Arm and stood up against Peter David and his faction and helped save the brand of the NDC. That all of them jumping up in the NDC. Yours truly, almost solely responsible. We had Mr. Burke, Uncle Tilly, and Glenn Noel who stood up with us. And we went around the island and spoke to the people and explained to the masses what was going on. A lot held back, but gave them a fair idea as to what was going on with the NDC and the Peter David faction. Now, as for the energy, you say you haven't seen after a convention. And that's why I said you're not accustomed to that level of politics. Because conventions don't come with no burst of energy. If there's a rally, there's a rally. But the actual new executive, we call them new, whether they're repeating or not because they're newly voted in, right? They get down to work, internal party. There's no dancing and wailing in the streets. Internal party work. After the convention, the political leader, Mrs. Emmeline Pay, did what she had to do. I don't know what you're looking for her to do, cartwheels in the streets. She did what she had to do. She visited the branches in the different constituencies and spoke to her members there as to what her vision is for the party going forward. Met with them one-on-one. Heard of whoever was disgruntled. Listened to what they had to say. That's what a new leader should do, right? And yes, she met with some disgruntled members. And yes, she put out the olive branch. She called Peter David as well, who didn't see it fit to call and congratulate her. She called him and stretched out the olive branch. So when you talk about root causes and get to the root causes and see what they can do to bring them back, we all know, even people outside of the NNP, we all knew what the root cause was. That Peter David did not get leadership of the NNP, and so he decided to leave and take the people that went with him from the NDC, take them back out. When you look at a meeting, everybody, nobody under 50, I could probably safely say, nobody under 60. These people been traveling with him from bow to stern. Nobody under 60 in the meeting. I specifically looked in the tongue of St. George for some of the names that I knew, that I saw on the list. The persons who left because they didn't like how he was treated, they were not even there in that meeting in town. I don't want to say I said that old people, but yes, there was. Sitting in the front. Sitting in the front. So she had meetings with her constituents in the different branches. And then they had what? 2 zonal meetings? 2 mini rallies, one in St. John's in Guam and one in River Road in the town of St. George. And that's what led the NDC to say they have a massive rally and bring out a bicycle, donkey cart, whatever, to come to go to Bush Eju. Board in the place and show us a picture from the top with the whole back empty. Yeah. So stop trying to belittle and to condemn and to make the NNP look bad because Peter is no longer in there and you support Peter. Stop. It's not looking good. That's what's not looking good. And a word to the wise, a word to you, Dr. Bridgman. The noise in the market is not the sale of the fish. The noise in the market is not the sale of the fish. Play me the next clip.
Mr. Speaker, my concern is that one member of this House started closing the debate. Mr. Speaker, for some reason, you were notified of a change. Mr. Speaker, you called the member to you. You spoke to the member. The member returned to his seat and continued closing the debate. Mr. Speaker, obviously, you had additional instructions. And so you stopped the member. You paused the debate of the member, the contribution, the closing of the member. You came to the back, Mr. Speaker. You engaged with us, Mr. Speaker. And then you came back and you allow another member of this House to start closing again. Mr. Speaker, it would be impossible
to sit and to partake of this. Mr. Speaker, I've heard it. If we want to leave, leave. That's not a point.
No,
Mr.
no.
Speaker, the point is
Honorable
that we
leader of the
sat
opposition.
and we started listening the closure of the debate. And it appears that you had other instructions.
You are repeating yourself. You made
Thank
the point,
you.
please take a seat. Right? Honorable Prime Minister, please continue.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I take it we should allow the colleagues to depart.
Now that was what you call a leader. Calm, cool, well collected, and said it nice and quiet that she and her team will not sit and let that happen. And she led the walkout. She led the walkout. The walkout had nothing to do with persons not getting what they want and therefore taking up their stuff and walk home. Your analogy had no bearing on the situation at hand because that's not what happened. That's not what happened. The Prime Minister and Dr. Mitchell was missing from the House. The member for St. David, the Prime Minister, never showed up during the 2 days budget debate. Never showed up, not once, not for 1 second. He was in the Parliament, in some back room, I guess in his office, back there, but never showed up. Dr. Mitchell was there and then disappeared. So the old talk from the Speaker about him not noticing the members missing and that he called a recess so he can go and find them is a blatant lie. Here's what happened. The member for St. David and the member for St. George's Northwest was missing from the chambers. We established that. Besides the member for St. Patrick East and Minister of Finance, who was scheduled to wrap up the debate. And I say scheduled because there was a schedule on pen and paper, on writing, in writing. There was a schedule. Now, they both were the other ones who did not speak. That is the member for St. David's and the member for St. George Northwest, right? They being absent, and the speaker knew and saw that they were missing. And the only person in the chamber that didn't speak then and was supposed to wrap up was the Minister of Finance. And so he called on the member for St. Patrick East to wrap up the debate. Play the clip.
Is it the like to be MP for St. Patrick East? Is it? I now invite the MP for St. Patrick East to now take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry, Honorable MP, you proceed, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, again. I wish to extend my deepest appreciation to all members of this Honorable House who have contributed to the important motion. I particularly commend those who have engaged constructively in genuinely criticizing the budget, thereby helping to elevate the debate and the consciousness and understanding of our people.
45.
This debate is a testament to the democratic process and our collective commitment to the people of Grenada. However, Mr. Speaker, I must take this opportunity to address and correct some grossly misleading statements made by the opposition. We have no doubt that these statements were made deliberately to hide the truth and keep some segments of our population uninformed. The leader of the opposition spoke of economic decline in the global economy and here in Grenada, citing the World Economic Report as published.
Honorable MP, just come to the bench, please.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker.
Please come to the bench. Join us here, please.
Or join you. Mr. Speaker, I was saying that the leader of the opposition spoke on economic decline in the global economy and here at home in Grenada, citing the World Economic Report as published by the IMF. Mr. Speaker, the World Economic Report, however, tells a very different story. Grenada's economy continues to grow with positive GDP expansion. In layman terms, Mr. Speaker, the economic pie is growing and not declining. Mr. Speaker, we can excuse the good lady for being new to the role of opposition leader, but what we can't excuse is she has been around as a senior government minister for many years, yet she does not appear to know or understand the difference between economic growth and economic decline. Or what is it, her intention? Is it to mislead or to deceive the population? Runaway inflation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, like economic growth, our friends on the other side either do not understand the concept of inflation or are spreading this or misinformation. The Grenada Education Enhancement Project, GIP 2. Mr. Speaker, we heard that the funding for the St. David's Catholic Secondary School and the St. Andrew's Anglican Primary School was secured by the NNP government. Another blatant untruth. The loans for these two projects were negotiated by our administration and signed by me as Minister of Finance in April of 2024. I have here with me the evidence with my signature attached of the loan agreement. So those of you who would want to at least have a look at it, I can make it available to the Parliament so you can see that I was the one who actually signed this loan. These loans for the two projects were negotiated under my administration and signed by me, and I showed you the evidence. Mr. Speaker, permit me to share this document with you if need be. Fiscal management and government spending. Mr. Speaker, contrary to claims of wanton fiscal mismanagement and fiscal deterioration, our finances are well managed. This reminds me of the opposition claim that the government will collapse in the first 6 months after the 2022 elections. Then in 1 year, then in another year and a half, now 2.5 years, they have been singing a different tune, yet that tune is very unsubstantiated. Mr. Speaker, perhaps one of the most Flagrant of these claims is a budget of over $2.1 million in overseas travel and hosting and entertainment by the Prime Minister. This is a lie. Mr. Speaker, if I'm permitted to use a word. Mr. Speaker, as a member of Parliament, especially those of us who claim to be religious leaders, should do better. That said, official engagement, whether domestic or international, are necessary for securing investments, strengthening domestic diplomatic ties, and advancing Grenada's development agenda. Every trip or every service is for a strategic purpose. Budget, loan, authorization, and financing the fiscal deficit. Mr. Speaker, the opposition is trying their best to mislead the nation.
And remember,
sorry,
I hate to stop you, but we need to take a 3-minute recess to get the matter resolved.
I didn't get you, Mr. Speaker.
To get a matter resolved.
Okay.
The Speaker never left his bench before the recess. So it is obvious he got a message from the Prime Minister on his phone. He called the member for St. Patrick East to the bench, telling him that the Prime Minister wanted to wrap up. This time you heard the gentleman. He had his wrap-up well prepared, came out slinging mud. They were all enjoying it, pounding tables. He was doing what he was supposed to do, wrap up. He went back to his space and ignored what he was told about the Prime Minister because it wasn't new to him. It was since in 2024 that the Prime Minister, although he gave up being the Minister of Finance, wanted to do the budget presentation and the wrap-up while the Minister of Finance is seated. And so the Minister of Finance stood up and held his ground against it. He came back in 2025 and tried to bully him into presenting the budget. He again stood up and held his ground. And he knew what would have happened if he came out and tried to do it on the floor. So he stood in the back. And when it was time, he came out and ambushed the Minister of Finance. So when the Speaker told the Minister of Finance, when he called him up the first time, and the Minister of Finance went back and he just continued, ignoring what he heard. The only way to get the Minister of Finance to sit down and shut up was to call a recess. And that's what he did. But when he went back, if you want to call it backstage, he told the members of His Majesty's opposition, don't you worry, the Minister of Finance will continue to wrap up. We just want to get the Prime Minister and the member for St. George's Northwest to come out, and if they speak, well, I guess if one speak, the other one would speak, because they were the only two that didn't speak, and then, of course, the wrap-up will continue. Look at how far into the wrap-up the gentleman got. So the opposition in the back wrapping up their caucus thinking, okay, the Prime Minister would come out, he would speak, then according to the schedule, if you look on the screen, you'll see the schedule. A prepared schedule by the leader of government business in the House and his members and the clerk of Parliament. They all agreed on that schedule, right? And so by the time the opposition came out, they realized that the Prime Minister had closed off the debate. As I said, ambushing the Minister of Finance, leaving him sitting there, not finishing his presentation, his wrap-up, and his presentation to his constituents, which he did not do, had not done, and did not get to do. And yes, the member for St. George Northwest should have sat when the Speaker of the House got up. That happened, but it's, you see that all the time going on, and the back and forth in the parliaments of the world. Yeah? But then not once did you hear coming from the opposition side that the member for St. George Northwest needed to speak, neither coming from him or any other. What he said was the member for St. Patrick East should be the one wrapping up. He didn't care if he spoke or not. So to say that because he didn't get what he wanted, it is not true. You might have your feelings against Dr. Mitchell now because you're no longer in the NNP and you're with Peter and the movement. But be fair and be honest in your judgment. You mentioned again not hearing the plans of the opposition leader in her presentation. It was a debate. It was a debate. She was debating on what she heard presented by the Minister of Finance. It wasn't a place for her to come with her plans and her programs and her policies for the nation, for the country. It was a debate. They were debating the 2025 budget presentation, the estimates of revenue and expenditure. And for the record, all this about showing example to the world, and this was not example, but example to the young people. Grenada still is one of the most, or have one of the most civil parliaments in the world, regionally and internationally. Haven't you seen some of those debates? Trinidad, for example, St. Vincent, the UK, China. Have you seen? Charles the Spell, people jumping, ducking on the table, people calling each other all sorts of derogatory names. So come on. All this sadness about showing example and it's not a good look, and oh, come on now. In this 2025 budget presentation in St. Lucia, the leader of the opposition, Alan Chasney, was also wrapped up and wrapped out of his presentation. Here is Alan Chasney.
I'm still here standing in front of Parliament, waiting for my opportunity to debate the estimates. I thought it was very important to have the two ministers that this government chose to protect, Ernest Hilaire and Richard Frederick, the two most controversial ministers in government today. We have the situation going on with the halls of justice. All the deceit and lies have been taking place in the Ministry of Housing. But more importantly, we have a situation where Grenada has suspended a company and suspended agents, and that agent was detained yesterday in Dubai because claims were laid against him in Dubai with the police as to the price that they paid for their CIPs. We have the European Parliament, who took the first step to suspend our visas. We have the proposed ban list going on. We have the crisis with our Cuban doctors and nurses. We have a crisis in water, with water in this country. And not once during the debate over the last 2 days were any of these things brought up. Instead, this government wanted me to speak so they could have Richard Frederick and Ernest Hilaire and the Prime Minister simply play politics. to rebut me and not to answer to the people of this country. This was a budget that was a la-la land budget. This is a budget where taxes have increased by almost $275 million and expenditures by over $300 million in comparison to 2019. This government has extorted the people of this country, taking money from their pockets and have very little to show for it. Do we have a better healthcare system? Do we have better roads? What's the price of bread today versus 2019? What's the price of your bus fares versus 2019? What could $1 buy in 2019 compared to what that $1 can buy today? And yet this government wants to boast about $2 billion budget. It doesn't matter what the number is if the people on the ground aren't feeling it. The fact is, this government has made the people of this country poorer. We're about to get much poorer because we're going to lose our visa access to Europe. We're going to be banned from traveling into the US, and they have nothing to say.
Not just your country, Mr. Chastney, our country too. Our country, they've made us poorer by far. You know, here at home, the opposition was not complaining about Dr. Mitchell not speaking. The argument was about the Minister of Finance, who already started wrapping up the debate, and the Prime Minister ambushing him. The Speaker was clearly manipulated and dictated to by the Prime Minister. He couldn't even answer to the opposition leader when she got up and spoke. He made her sit down and just turned to the Prime Minister and said, continue. What is that? Dr. Bridgman, you said you were looking on at the budget. If you were, then you would have seen the saga unfolded in chronological order as I explained it. I've said it before. The events as it unfolded had nothing to do with Emmeline Pear or Keith Mitchell or any of the opposition members. This had all to do with the member for St. David, the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, and the member for St. Patrick East, and the Minister of Finance, Dennis Cornwall, and who should read the budget or do the wrap-up or not. The Prime Minister wanted to do the wrap-up, and so he decided he was going to ambush the Minister of Finance. After the budget, hardly anyone spoke of the budget presentation. That's what you said, right? I'll agree with that. But many spoke of the blistering rebuttal that came from the leader of His Majesty's opposition, Honorable Emmeline Pear. As for the PM's wrap-up, crickets. What he gave was a constituency report, really. As for your boy Peter, I believed he missed the boat. His presentation was for the budget consultations. All those suggestions and advice he had to give about togetherness and coming together and let's do this together, that was for consultation, not for the debate. The system we follow does not call for one-party states. That's why we have parties and elections, and the people vote under the Westminster system. Let us all come together. It's not a one-party state. I'm not saying that sometimes you don't have to, but it never happens. Because the ruling administration, for the most part, especially this one, they're not inclusive. They preach inclusivity, but they're not inclusive. I have a question for you, Mr. Bridgman, and your host. Did you hear when the Prime Minister referred to the leader of His Majesty's opposition as a mother hen? You said nothing about that. The host, as a female, said nothing about that. and that the Prime Minister called the rest of the members of the opposition skin hens in a chauvinistic manner. He did not welcome or congratulate Honorable NNP as leader of the opposition in the House. He did not. Listen to this clip.
So I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, we can't have a situation where a mere difference of views over a procedural matter leads to this kind of storming out, you know, with a mother hen and the three chicken hens swallowing in a row. We have to do better than that, Mr. Speaker, and I'm simply putting it on record because I think if this continues, it will send the wrong example to our junior parliamentarians. We are training right now. It will send the wrong example to the school children who are here. You have to appreciate that sometimes people have the right to make the decision. How do you make the decision? You persuade, but if after they say they ain't changing your mind, you have that in court all the time. You talk from now till that kingdom come, the judge sits, they rock, they sleep, and then wake up and they say, Mr. David.
Further to that, did you both hear, when acting in the Governor General's role, I have to say, he offered the seat of the leader of the opposition to the independent member of the movement. How rude. Come sit in the seat of the opposition leader. I noticed you had no comment on those events. Instead, your host wanted to know if you believe it was a mistake for the delegates voting in MLMP as leader.
Do you believe that with what the NNP has to achieve, the task at hand, to seek re-election, do you think they made a mistake in the choice of leader for the party?
I would say in terms of the choice of leader, I will leave it up to the party people.
Yes, indeed. That's for the delegates to decide. And if Grenada is ready for a woman prime minister.
You know, I hear a lot of people saying, oh, it's time for a female leader. Grenada is Grenada ready for a female prime minister? Or, you know, is it the romantic view of things to, tick another box for feminism and all of that? Is Grenada, based on your understanding of the Grenadian political landscape, do we have room for a female prime minister?
I think, and I support leadership from whatever gender, and I support and encourage women to participate in leadership in organization. It's so important. I mean, there are so many great books written and studies done for women, and I've had some great women as leaders, as supervisors, women who have really took me in and provided me my first job in leadership. And I'm always thankful, yes, women, great leadership. But I think in Grenada needs good leadership. For me, it doesn't matter what gender, male, female, we need good leadership.
We do need good leadership. We do need good leadership. And good leadership in Emmeline Pear. Good leadership in Emmeline Pear. I say full stop. I hold my tongue on that question that came from the host. Otherwise, I'll hold my tongue. You guys continue to focus on Dr. Mitchell, even though he's gone. He is no longer the story, but you all had hope he'd be, and so that you could continue to beat up on Dr. Mitchell. And now that he is not, you guys don't know what to do with yourselves. So it's still Dr. Mitchell, Dr. Mitchell, Dr. Mitchell. First, he wasn't going anywhere. He was just leading them on. He was going to be called from the floor in the convention. That didn't happen. And Emmeline Pear became the leader. Then he was going to hold on to the leader of the opposition so that he can easily fall back into the place of the leader. The next convention. That did not happen. He gave up the leader of the opposition. So now he's leading from behind. Give it a rest. Give it a rest and have respect for the new leader of the NNP. She is the leader. She's the leader of the opposition in the House. Dr. Mitchell is living rent-free in you guys' heads. You guys need to get Dr. Mitchell out of your heads and come to grip with the fact that Emmeline Pay is the new leader of the NNP and the leader of the opposition of the lower house. And she is mighty. Move on. Let's hear the next clip.
See, is it too early to tell, or can we say to what extent or to some extent the conduct of the convention and what happened? We saw mass resignations soon after in particular districts. To what extent that can have any impact on the new National Party, an extremely strong political force historically. But does this, is this going, this too shall pass, or can we see some sort of impact on the party because of that one moment in time?
I always say politics is about addition and multiplication. It's never about dividing and subtraction. And whenever people leave your party or your organization for whatever reason, it's never a good look, especially the reasons why they left. And hearing from the political leader and others in the party talk about, we have dealt with those things before, and that's not what you say. People have been there and have done a tremendous work for you. Find out the root causes. As a matter of fact, this is what I just finished presenting today, the root causes of problems. You have to find the root causes and try now to see how can we fix this. Spend some time collecting data, listening to people, and not just saying that we have been in existence for a long time, people come and go. This is like, come on now. This is the elementary level of leadership to say things like that. Find the reasons why. So listen to them. How can we help you? How can we get you back in? Because we need everyone. It was not a good way to handle resignation. For whatever reasons they did, and they stated the reasons, and as a party you may not like it. But the public statements they made in response to the folks was done. Those things bother me a lot. To say, hey, we that's not how you handle situation. That's not how you handle resignation. Let's find out the root causes and let's fix it. That's how you do it.
But you said it. They stated the reasons why they resigned. Yeah, the convention was contaminated, as you said. So why did you need to find out the cause again when they stated the cause? Mass resignations? Well, I dealt with that already. 20 resignations out of a party of 33,000 strong. Where is the mass resignation? I spoke about that already. That wasn't no mass resignation. The bleeding stopped. The bleeding, the impact you guys expected from that. It's weak. Nothing happened. It was weak. Everybody went, oh, so much people leaving NNP. It was weak. Dr. Bridgman, how dare you tell the leader of the NNP party what to say or what not to say? You can say what you feel, but don't suggest to her, well, that's not what she should say. No. And she was correct. Yes, politics is addition and multiplication or whatever. But she is correct. You don't hop on that. It happened, it's going to happen. It was a planned thing. We knew it. Everybody knew that that's what's going to happen, and they said it was going to happen. So what you trying to do? Why waste time on it? Move on. Move on. Forget it happened. Don't find out. You don't need to know the root cause. They tell us what the root cause was. And he left, and he taking his people with him. Go and be happy. NDC expelled him and his faction from the party. They threw them out. 13 of them, one go. Yes, sometimes we know, but sometimes you have to purge. Sometimes you have to purge in order to move on and start anew. people come and people go, she is correct. And not everybody that having a paper and say you resign and go to different media houses saying you resign. I resigned from the NDC in 2018. I did it to whom I supposed to, the chairman of the party, and I copied to the political leader. I resigned from as president of the women's arm and as deputy chairman of the party. And others resigned after that, right? And still resigning. And some of them not resigning. People are just walking out and leave. Both parties. People, when they decide they're moving on, they're moving on. There are NNP supporters who voted for the NDC in the last election who have since returned home. There are NDC supporters who are not happy with what they're seeing, the ones we would call the flip-floppers, and they have since fall off the wagon again. You are correct. Politics is a numbers game. But she is also correct. You cannot stop persons from leaving. Play the next clip.
You earlier in the interview, you spoke of something new, that people are looking for something new, that they're tired of the same old, and there's the Peter David factor. He is out of the NNP. There's a lot of chatter about his ability to lead a third political party. Some even saying that he could do serious harm or some sort of blow to the NNP if he makes a move. Do you think he should make a move? Do you think he can make a move?
I would say yes to all your questions. He should make a move, and he can make a move.
You spoke of being new and fresh. Something new and fresh. They already established. New and fresh should not be associated with the names like Peter David, Derek James, Chester Humphrey, Camlin Mark, the Wilbys, the others. Just not with those names. You spoke of Peter David's ability. What's his ability again? Someone please enlighten me on what Peter David has done politically for Grenada over a period of 46 years in politics, from 1979. Something you could walk down and say, oh, because of Peter David, this is happening. That building, if it wasn't for Peter David, 46 years. Anytime Peter David is featured in the public space, it's because he is in a scramble for leadership. He is in a scramble for power, in a struggle to lead. And he's always the victim. 10,000 Frenchmen, never wrong. Togetherness? Togetherness. When he tried to wrestle the NDC from Tillman Thomas, was that togetherness? Mobilizing forces to joining, offering monies when necessary, causing pandemonium within the party. I saw with my own two eyes members of his faction, his grouping, boldly disrespecting the then sitting prime minister and leader of the NDC party while he sit there all innocent. It's like, not me. Squaring up the prime minister, almost getting physical. Togetherness. Where were you, Bridgman, when the party planned a public meeting led by the prime minister and leader of the party in Guab St. John, and the Peter David faction had their own meeting, their fun day down at Lesser Beach? Togetherness? And as if it's in his DNA, tried the same nonsense in the NNP, only he was met with resistance, and rightly so. What exactly is this Peter David politics you speak of that you like so much? What is the growth you've seen that you spoke of? What is the politics? Is it this?
You feel it? That feeling of possibility? Now let's talk about it together. Join me this Friday at River Road for food, drinks, and a community conversation about Grenada's future. No speeches, no politics as usual, just real talk about what we can build together. First we question, then we organize, finally we move. See you there, Friday, River Road.
Yes, indeed. That's what he's good at. He's good at cooking and having drinking and meeting people, walking around and shaking hands and things. That's it. As he said, no politics. No politics. Peter's politics is loafing on ready-made parties and then trying to buy his way to leadership. He's a coward. Why didn't he form a party in 2012? Why didn't he follow the plan 13 years ago when he and his faction was expelled from the NDC and the plan was to form a new party, the National United Front? Enough. Have you ever heard of it, Dr. Bridgman? When others went to do so, to form the party with Minister Glenys Roberts as the leader, the plan was that she would be leader up front, and then at their first convention, Peter David will emerge as the leader because, of course, they didn't want to, because everybody is saying all he wants is leader and he's fighting for power. Look what he wants to overthrow Tillman. So to keep that dust down, they tried it that way. But while they were trying to support Peter David, he left them there waiting and went into the NNP, took them with him like Derek James and so. They went with him in the NNP and left Glenys, Roberts and Farron Lowe and the likes waiting for him to come to Nuff. They're waiting still. Sister Glenys still looking back. I know she bound to have stiff neck. Haven't you heard the narrative, no pun intended, the narrative out there that Peter never wanted power, never wanted to lead? So then what is he really good for? What is it he really wants? You said he's ready. What is he ready for if he doesn't want leadership, doesn't want power? After 70 what is he ready for? Always the victim. I wonder why. Getting practically thrown out of political parties. Okay, he didn't get thrown out of the NNP, literally. Your answer to that, not something he did on his own. Well, who did it? Who said and rallied troops to overthrow Tillman Thomas? Who did? He didn't do it on his own. He was the leader. He was the one who said he don't want Tillman Thomas, the peasant boy, as his leader, and rallied troops. He's a big boy. He didn't do it on his own. Look at the town of St. George constituency, a constituency boasted of represented for 4 terms. What has he done in the town of St. George? Where had he left his mark in the constituency of St. George? Dr. Bridgman, bouncing around, being friendly, shaking hands and smiling. That makes you a people person, but it doesn't make you a great politician. Charisma is not enough. It doesn't make you a strong leader. and ultimately Prime Minister. Peter is still feeling out and asking people if they're feeling it. They're about to make a second round around the island, asking people if they're feeling it, if they're feeling the movement. Tillman was a peasant boy who he refused to be led by into the next election. It was time for Dr. Mitchell to go. I will not be led by Emmeline Pay. Play the next clip, please.
The fact that he himself is also rooted in the political fabric of the country, he is as much of a force, probably as much of a force as each of the political parties. The Peter David brand is a brand unto itself. Do you think that, do you agree with that? And do you believe that that will help him to move forward with his movement, even while the naysayers say, oh, well, there's no room for a third political party in the country?
I think it would help him. I think spending time again, even the length of time someone has been there can be also in this current political climate that we are in can be, against that person, because people are talking about you have been there too long and all this kind of stuff, and we need a new face, we need younger people and stuff. And youthfulness is one thing, but experience also is important. I think this youthful government made some mistakes. Again, youthful exuberance, which I said during the election, and I'm seeing it a lot right now. But with Peter, his experience, I think, matters again, which is inclusive aspect. You have to go out there and give your why. And I think he started doing that. He started to talk about his reasons for resigning from the NNP and doing his new movement, because I think people need to know that. But now we have to shift from your why as to why you left the party to now, here are my plans for Grenada. I think that's the shift that has to be made right now, because again, yes, people are looking for something. People also said, do I believe him? Is he a person that I can believe in terms of integrity? And they will always go back and say, well, he left this party, he left that party. But again, you've got to look at the reasons. People leave organizations and leave political parties and stuff. And, sometimes the political party left them.
You said it right. People leave political parties all the time. You got that right, Dr. Bridgman. People come and people go. It is okay. When you say about Peter and why he's not in a political party at the moment, we run out of parties. We only have 2 main parties and he ran out of that. So now he's left to start his own party. Best wishes to you, Peter David, and the movement. It's the Last Supper. Folks, that's a wrap on today's episode of Simon Says. It's always a pleasure conversing with you, keeping them honest. Thank you for joining us for yet another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. See you next week, same time, same place. Happy Easter to you, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, coming from the Simon Says team.
Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.